Welcome to the lab solution lecture. So in this solution, we're going to discuss and investigate how Wireshark credentials breach can be investigated. So as always, we need to load the credentials.breach.pkapng file. I'm just going to close it and do the whole process for clarity. And let me relaunch the lab once again, just to be very sure. So sudo main script, Kelly, and then Wireshark introduction lab, which is number 5. Okay, so the lab is ready to use. I've closed the previous file. So the next step is to load credentials-breach.pkapng. So go to File, Open, and you have to go to Home, Kelly, Desktop, Labs, Wireshark Intro folder, and here you have to load this file, credentials-breach.pkapng. Okay, press Enter. So the first challenge is to identify how credentials were accessed. So this is the first specific task. Find out who accessed the credentials. Now that's very simple. Let's see if there were any TCP sessions or HTTP sessions. Well, I can see here there were TCP sessions. There you go. There was a get credentials.txt session going on. And who accessed that? And who sent the request for this one? So it's coming from Kali Linux VM and it is going to the Nginx container. It was HTTP protocol based request, a GET request, and credentials.txt was basically accessed. So which IP accessed the internal Nginx server? 172.17.0.1 Kali Linux VM. What protocol and port were used? HTTP protocol was used. And let's see what were the ports used. Okay, if I click this packet and I go here in TCP, so destination port was 80, source port was 12345. Okay, so 12345 port on Kali Linux VM was used to access port 80 on Nginx server, which is basically the web server port, and this file was accessed. Perfect. Next, identify if and how the credentials were exfiltrated. Was there an outbound DNS resolution to an external system? I do see a DNS here. So even if you want to, for example, filter, you can just do DNS and then you'll just see the DNS traffic, okay? Sometimes this makes life easy. Okay, I see this one. There was a DNS query and then a DNS query response. Okay, what was the DNS query? The DNS query was basically, let me check what were the query questions. malicious.attackdomain.com. So this is the remote host name which was resolved. And where was it sent actually? It's sent from Kali Linux VM to Google's DNS server. By the way, 8.8.8.8 is a very popular Google DNS server. And sometimes if we are facing, local DNS server issues, we also use this in our browser settings. Anyways, what was the response? Let me go to this packet. Let me expand this one. So once again, the query was malicious.attackdomain.com, which answers the first part. And what was the IP address? Let me check the answers. So against this one, Google responded the IP address is 201.20.20.30. Perfect. So now we have found out, yes, a remote malicious domain was resolved. And this was the IP address which Kali Linux VM got from Google's DNS server. Now the third and the most important part of the challenge, you need to prove that actual credentials were leaked. So let me remove this filter. Let's go back here. And now we are going to leverage what we learned in last time. So now since we know the malicious IP address, which is 201.20.20.30, I can see that malicious IP address here and here. Okay. So now very simple. I'll click one of these packets, right click, follow TCP stream. There you go. Exfiltrating credentials.txt, username, password, token. Excellent. So what this follow TCP stream did was that it basically checked all of the TCP communication between Kali Linux VM and that remote malicious host. And it also showed us what was the exact data which was sent or exchanged. So this is your proof. So you can take a screenshot of this and basically attach it in your report. So this basically completes the last section of the lab as well. So I hope you've learned some useful tools and techniques on how to actually use Wireshark to do forensic investigations. Thank you.